A while ago, I made a video about a life of a mech warrior, the trials, tribulations, and general experience you should expect if you were, I don't know, isekai'd into battletech or something by Truck-kun. And I figured it would be a decent idea to continue on with the life of, maybe make it an ongoing thing, where I explore the experiences and lives of fictional grunts that you generally never see in favor of the heroes and explosions. So this time around, the life of a mechtech, the often forgotten but utterly critical technical staff that keep everything from the tanks and mechs to the coffee machine and service rifles working. We'll be covering how one becomes a mechtech, what challenges and struggles they face, what their life is like, and why this is most likely one of the most miserably frustrating careers to pick, if not one of the safest and most lucrative. Mech warriors might be the kings of battle, but to a mechtech, they're a migraine-inducing pain in the butt that makes you want to kickstart a landmine. Before we get into things though, a brief introduction! Generic greetings and welcome to Science Insanity, a channel dedicated to bringing my love of sci-fi to all of you. This professional idiot will be your guide in these trying times, hopefully earning a like or sub by the end. And with that, on to the video. Starting off fast and quick. What do they do? Well, I think a better question is, what don't mechtechs do? If you can think of literally anything that they might need to be repaired, maintained, modified, built, they're probably the ones who are doing it. You might think that mechtech implies they work on mechs, since, you know, it's in the name. But no, they work on everything. Think of them like the engineers from Star Trek. If you ever need anything technical or mechanical dealt with, just throw enough compliments and alcohol at them and a Scottish miracle worker will show up and fix your space truck. They do primarily work on mechs, but since they're some of the most competent engineers and mechanics out there, they tend to branch out their work to anything and everything that shows up. Not to mention, most of the time, no one else has even the faintest idea what they're doing. So instead of accidentally blowing up the power conduits on a dropship while trying to change a light bulb, mechtechs will just go over there and do it themselves. Also, gonna be real with you, I feel like 90% of the reason mechtechs do so much is because mech warriors themselves are all a little brain damaged, and everything they touch inevitably stops working, explodes, or works better for all of one trigger pull until option 1 or 2 happens. So I think of it as self-preservation. Changing a light bulb is beneath a mechtech, but it would take a hell of a lot more time and effort to fix all the power conduits after a mech jock blew them out trying to do it themselves. So they just do the grunt work and hope that other people don't make more problems for them. There's also the interesting fact that most mechtechs are entirely responsible for the logistics and supplies of their unit's needs. Sort of, not really, but yes. In reality, every unit will have a number of mechtechs assigned to it, one of them being the head tech. This guy essentially manages all the logistics for the mechanical and technical aspects of the unit. The commander, or ranking officer, may appoint staff to manage things like food, water, fuel, ammo, basic stuff like that, but the techs make orders and request for parts, components, and materials. If more Myanmar is needed to repair a mech that's had its arms blown off, the techs do it. If rare or out-of-production parts are needed to repair a mech's leg, then the techs will scrounge markets and cross-reference serial numbers to find them. If things need to be kludged together in time for an upcoming battle, then the techs are the ones who decide how, what, and where things get Frankensteined together. And you might then ask, what about the mech warriors? Don't they have some input on what gets done to their mech? Every game, tabletop, role-playing, and video puts the control in the hands of the people piloting the mechs, right? No. Firstly, you often work as a commander of the entire unit, that's generally how those things are set up, but also, most mech warriors don't know shit about how their mechs work. Oh, sure, they may tinker, do basic maintenance, and occasionally mess with the laser focusing lenses if they're bored, but on average a mech warrior is just about able to change their mech's proverbial oil, while a mechtech is capable of rebuilding the entire engine, fixing the frame, and unbending the transmission after a 100-mile-per-hour vibe check. Make no mistakes, mechtechs do all the real technical stuff, and if the mech jocks ask for something stupid, the mechtechs have final say on whether it gets done or not. Mostly because they know better. You might think it's a good idea to strip off all the heat sinks you have to mount an extra particle cannon, but if the mech knows you'll compromise the engine and send yourself critical after one trigger pull, they'll just flat out not do it and tell you why. Mechtechs also have some of the most input into the financing of a unit, since the most expensive and time-consuming part of all operations is the technical logistics and repair. In a single hour of combat, a mech warrior can suffer damage that would take literal years worth of man-hours to fix and cost hundreds of thousands or millions of C-bills to finance. 6-month projected repair time with a team of dozens working on it. Of course, in situations like that, most of the time the mech is just a write-off, but if you've got something rare like a king crab, you better believe you're spending everything to keep that lard ass in the fight, because you will never find another. But when doing the actual repairs, techs have to deal with everything from armor melting into the Myanmar bundles, and reactor housings being nearly breached, and ammo bins having live rounds that you need to blowtorch out because they're stuck in the belt feed, and then some genius asks you to repair his PPC because he, quote-unquote, only cracked the lens and bent the barrel a little when he punched that enemy light mech, and oh yeah, while you're at it, can you please reattach the arm he punched off said light mech, since he did win it in salvage. Also, the commander is asking you to replace all the internals again on his mech, since he actually preferred the large laser and extra heat sinks instead of the PPC that you told him was going to be running too hot, but he ignored. So now all the electronics in the side torso are fused, and the heat sinks need to be replaced again, and the motherfucking Dale wants you to strap a Gauss rifle to his Locust because, hey, my dudes, it has an MG ballistic hardpoint, so it should be easy, and you get the idea. Mechtechs are often criminally overworked and practically drowning in morons at all times. But it's not all Amazon working hours and dependent alcoholism. Mechtechs are some of the most well-paid, respected, and protected people in all of BattleTech. If you want to have the safest possible career while also being as close as possible to horrific death and monstrous war crimes, then being the guy keeping the weapons working is a good place to be. Since it's also such a ridiculously hard to learn profession and all the technical info is just excruciating, a good mechtech is worth their weight in gold. So much so that killing mechtechs is an almost war crime. Almost, but not quite. Instead, it's way more common that after a battle leaves an enemy unit decimated, the mechtechs are either taken prisoner or offered a new contract. Pirates are more the prisoner and forced labor route, while any professional military or merc unit essentially goes, alright, your old contract, plus a signing bonus, and bi-weekly barbecues. You willing to work with us now? Anything we want to negotiate on this? The other option is death, but pretty sweet deal overall. Your technical skills guarantee you some of the best treatment in the setting, and if you aren't treated well, or some up-jumped low-noble mech warrior decides to treat you like shit, well, everyone will figure he just didn't manage his heat well enough when he shut down in front of an entire enemy unit. Such a shame that he panicked and didn't eject from his mech or call for help over his radio when this happened. Oh, it's good to be the only really educated person on the military base. Fun fact, this actually happened years ago while DMing, I guess, a BattleTech role-playing session. I was also one of the characters. One of my friends was playing the most infuriatingly dickish Lyran noble I have ever seen, and I killed his character because I hated him. He treated the techs, his fellow jocks, and even me, the DM/company commander, like shit. So his mech just stopped working mid-battle. He wasn't particularly angry about this, since he was kind of going for the shot-in-the-back send-off for his character, but, we laughed, he made another character, we continued the campaign. Rules were further fudged after that. Treat the techs badly, and things will go badly. Suddenly my players put far more effort into their working relationships with the NPCs and suggested pay bonuses or team-building events like movie night or unit cookouts. So if that's what the experience of being a mechtech is like, and there's plenty of ups and downs, how do you actually become one? Well, in the MechWarrior video, I talked a lot about how successful MechWarriors will pass on their skills down to their kids, and how stuff like education and generally just working your way up from a peasant background could be done, and you would struggle to do that in this case. So for the most part, you have two paths open to you. Number one, test into a proper military academy. Not only do they train warriors, pilots, infantry, whatever, but they also train all the logistics and support personnel needed to keep an army running, all the way down to the cooks and mechtechs. So the great houses often have lavish and highly effective education programs aimed at producing these technicians. The other option is, well, try not to blow yourself up and pray. Now this may seem extremely bipolar. What, you either become a space engineer after years of schooling, or you redneck repair shop it and hope you don't die? And honestly, yeah, in the extremely rare case that you're raised into it, you only got there by being involved with main character level stories and other people who actually did get the education and teaching that you didn't. Instead of diving into the nitty-gritty of why and how most mechtechs go through proper schooling, let me instead explain what the state of the inner sphere logistics is like. After hundreds of years of wars, endless conflicts, and constantly shifting borders, Any random mech may have a dozen different variants, all with similar but distinct internals and components. They can come in any state, from boating lost tech and factory new components, to beat to shit and sporting a field-modified Gauss rifle that's shooting bits of steel I-beam because that's all they could find for ammo. Maintaining a battle mech, especially one that's seeing active combat, is a nightmare. An actual wake-up screaming, shit your bed in terror nightmare. You have thousands of mechs, billions of individual parts, and endless combinations of them that you need to manage and understand. Even something as simple as swapping out lasers can be a Herculean task, because two medium lasers, built by two different companies, could be wildly incompatible, with different pins for power transfer, different lenses for focusing, different internal chambers. So just because it's a medium rating laser doesn't mean that it is at all in any way usable to repair or replace something that got damaged on one of your vehicles. In essence, it's the gacha game from hell. Is it possible to learn this stuff alone? Yeah, absolutely. Tons of hobbyists and professionals teach themselves how to rebuild entire cars or tanks or smith guns and stuff all the time in real life. But in battletech, the stakes are often infinitely higher and vastly more complicated. There's a rather large gap between being able to maintain and partially rebuild your civilian car and building a stealth fighter jet off of personal study and your own research. So for the vast majority of mechtechs in the setting, they went through school to become one, training extensively in theory, practice, and operations on testing mechs. Often it starts out extremely simple and small. In those military academies, the mechs that are used by the trainee mech jocks often have dings, dents, problems with the mime or whatever, because as the mech warriors are learning, they'll fall over, bump into things, overheat, and generally this is a great way to start. You have more experienced technicians that guide younger mech techs in training, and they'll work on things like replacing dented or ablated armor panels, replacing Myanmar bundles with the help of more seasoned professionals, or even swapping out weapons to practice combat scenarios where they might need to take out the missile ammo or replace something, or quickly hot swap in a new type of ammunition during combat. From there, they'll often be sent on multi-year long training programs, because even once they graduate, a mech tech isn't really capable or ready to just go off on their own and actually practice their craft. Instead, after graduating, they won't be part of a training unit anymore, but they'll be in second line or reserve deployments. For example, actual military units that might be on garrison duty, or light anti-piracy work, or generally pacifying civil unrest. In these cases, they'll find that mechs often have more damage or more wear on them. They'll be going through more rugged environments. If they get into combat with pirates, they might even have significant damage or components that they need to deal with. But in a lot of cases, it's not going to be significantly difficult enough that they can't do it. And in extreme cases, they'll be given the miracle worker treatment of, repair this mech. I need it in like 3 weeks for the next engagement. We don't have a lot of time and the enemy's pushing in. You got it, boss. The mech is just legs, but I'll find a way to rebuild it in time for the next mission. Somehow. So the training for a mech tech isn't something that happens quickly. It's not like 3 years and then you're done. It's more like a decade worth of gradually building up the intensity of your training and the complicated nature of what you're working on. Generally, what you should expect as a mech tech is multiple decades to half a century of service. You're looking at 10 years just to complete your training and become proficient at your craft, decades more of working your way up, getting gradually higher pay, being trusted to work on more and more complicated machines and tasks, and finally, the last few decades is going to be either in management or teaching. I should also mention that their working conditions have remarkable disparity between them. Being a tech is going to involve a lot of hard physical labor no matter what, but depending on how advanced the unit you're working with is or where you're stationed, you might be in for a lot easier or harder of a time. If you're lucky enough, by a miracle and a half, to be on something like the Argo from the BattleTech strategy game, a Star League relic, or any other extremely advanced transporter dropship, then you'll even have automated systems that can do a lot of the work for you, like slicing off and replacing armor panels, and all you need to do is manage it. But if you're out on campaign, just behind the front lines, oh my god, better get used to working on mechs supporting their own weight, while the best you've got is a crane to heft parts around and your own elbow grease to maneuver the several 100-pound slabs of metal around to repair the damn thing. It can be truly backbreaking for a tech, and they are often extremely physically fit and highly muscular people. There's also the unfortunate side that being a mech tech, especially if you're working in a combat environment or out on campaign, you're gonna have to deal with dead bodies. A lot of dead bodies, all over the place. Dear God, mech techs have to suffer this. Mech warriors tend to die violently and frequently, as I discussed in the MechWarrior video, and when there's a corpse missing everything above the pelvis in the mech you're working on, you're the guy that has to bag it up, hose out the remaining splatter, and scrub the bone fragments out of the control panel. All in all, the life of a mech tech is far safer and oftentimes far more comfortable than their mech jockey counterparts. They're treated more like valuable commodities, and even the dumbest of them are still smart enough to complete years of education and grueling technical testing to be able to work on the stars of the setting. Once you settle in for the long haul, you're looking at years of backbreaking labor and damn hard work, eventually advancing up the ranks with age and experience to manage your own team. There's very little glory in it, and it ain't much, but it is honest hard work. And unlike many people in battletech, being a mech tech comes with a few extremely rare privileges. You have the chance, a good chance, of retiring wealthy, successful, and with a hell of a lot of stories to tell, settling into a quiet life or potentially teaching the next generation if you're good. And that brings us to the end of the video. Life of a mech tech. If you've made it this far, you are clearly the target audience, so why not leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, all of the stuff that helps the YouTube channel out, because it is greatly appreciated and genuinely does help fight the YouTube algorithm. If you're feeling more generous, Sci has a Patreon where you can throw a few bucks at my Staying Alive fund. Or if you just want to hang out, I stream on the weekends, various sci-fi related stuff and mech adjacent content, as well as having a Discord with a community of fellow turbo nerds that you can hang out with, share hobbies, shoot the shit, and just hang around. And with that being said, to all the people already supporting the channel, a huge thanks to the arms dealers, supplying all the tools and toys that were shown in today's video. Running around a work bay and dealing with all the mech techs and annoying them was great fun. To the food merchants, ensuring that starvation is an ever far off threat, thank you very much. And to the coffee vendors fueling my war on sleep. One day, with enough coffees, I shall never sleep again. Thanks. And to the new guys recently joining, a huge thanks to Dykale, Barry Rovers, Thirsty Sailor, Jordan Ford, and Zeroz Kane. Thank you guys very much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. And with that, the video's functionally over. I got nothing else to say. Outros are hard. Goodbye!